PharmaPhobic is powered by Achieve the Lifestyle, a company dedicated to helping you empower your health, redefine your lifestyle, and all for the health of it. You're listening to PharmaPhobic, where we challenge the state of health in America. I'm Janie, a physician assistant, and I've seen how healthcare keeps people dependent instead of truly healthy.
And I'm Dan, a veteran turned fitness pro here to uncover the truth and explore simple and sustainable health solutions. From big pharma to big food, we're exposing the conflicts of interest keeping us sick and finding better ways to take back our health.
No fluff, no gimmicks, just real talk, real solutions, and a little bit of fun along the way.
Hello there. Welcome to another episode of the PharmaPhobic podcast, where we help you achieve the strongest, healthiest, and most capable version of yourself. I'm Dan.
And I'm Janie.
And guys, we're going to get right into this one, okay? I think we're sticking with a theme here. We want to be helpful. We want people to listen to this podcast and walk away with something that they can implement into their day-to-day to get to that stronger, healthier, more capable you. Today, we're going to talk about common shortfalls that we see, things that kind of interrupt people's progress or keep them from getting started or keep them from just touching anything that looks like moving in a positive direction with their health. I have some more training related type stuff because guess what? If you want to be stronger, healthier, capable, you best get in that gymnasium. Or gym for short. And then Janie has some more medical type stuff. And then we're going to marry the two, kind of like we are.
Yeah.
You see what I did there?
I see what you did.
See what I did there?
Yeah. There is some overlap between this and it's all based around just general lifestyle, right? And so let's get started. And don't worry, I brought note cards again.
Yeah, I think this is why... This is basically what you're about to see here is what started Achieve the Lifestyle. Conversations over there. I'm like, wait, did we just become best friends? Because, she said something medical. I'm like, well, I could help with that if I were doing this in the gym. And then he's like, oh, wait, you're seeing that in the gym? Well, I could help if I were like health coaching, medical providing there. So boom, this is what you're literally about to witness the power of the joining of the medical and the fitness. Okay.
Okay. All right.
I'm just having fun with you guys right now, but okay, let's get started. Let's get to it today. So first shortfall that I see when people come to me, complaining about lack of progress with their fitness and getting to certain health goals or whatever, the first one that I see is there tends to be a prevailing focus on aesthetics, the way they look, over capability, what their body can do. Now, everybody wants to look a certain kind of way. Everybody has some sort of aesthetic goal. Everybody. I don't care who you are. There is some in the back of your head even. There's some sort of aesthetic goal that you're like, I want to look a certain way. Because the equation, the Deion Sanders equation, which I've referenced before, is look good, feel good, play good. Okay? If you look good, you feel good. If you feel good, you play good. Now, putting that together, he's talking about, aesthetically. So, we want to function appropriately so we feel really good. Our head is on right. But you also got to perform well. And that's part of the long-term health continuum, okay? If you solely focus on aesthetics, first of all, what I tend to see is that people start following certain advice from people that don't necessarily put out information that fits either long-term health or where this particular person is in life at the point. Case example, I'll pick on men for a little bit. You follow some bodybuilder that's on more juice than Jamba on Instagram, and thank you, Chael Sonnen, once again for that quote. But you follow some bodybuilder on Instagram that's putting out really good bodybuilding advice. Okay, so not to say that his methods and his principles, his training principles are not good. He's putting out really good bodybuilding advice for bodybuilders that compete and bodybuilders that are on the juice. And you are a dad of 3, midlife, stressed to the gills, working 60 hours a week, or maybe you're own a business, you're a highly engaged, highly busy person, and you're not on the juice. So why are we listening and taking, you want to follow the exact plan that a 30-some-year-old or even a 40-some-year-old professional bodybuilder on pharmaceutical enhancement drugs or performance enhancement drugs is putting out for other bodybuilders on PEDs?
Yeah.
Makes sense? So with that in mind, form follows function, okay? If you start training for capability, which is what's going to carry you through life, okay? The guy training for a bodybuilding competition he doesn't give, and he's on drugs, on PEDs, doesn't give a rat's booty about health. He's following this very extreme thing that he wants to do right now, and he'll worry about his health later.
He's trying to achieve a visual result at the sacrifice of health.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, is he doing something that's healthy? We've talked about this on previous episodes. He's lifting weights.
Yeah.
That's healthy. But he's going into a point where he's coming back around to something that could be unhealthy, especially once we drop the PEDs in there and then we're going for these crazy amounts of volume. So picking on the guys there, it's like, listen, if you're some middle-aged male with kids or whatever, and you have an actual job and your job is not to get paid to look huge on stage, you're going to benefit more from pursuing capability. What does that mean? Hey, my range of motion is improving. I can do today what I couldn't do yesterday. I can walk longer. I'm a little bit stronger. I can pick up more groceries in one trip. I can handle my kids. I can throw the ball longer with my kid in the backyard. These things are going to pay more dividends to you in quality of life, more so than having 20-inch biceps. Does that make sense? Now, does that mean that we don't train to pursue 20-inch biceps? No, we won't. We still going to get jacked and we're still going to work pretty hard, but there's a different priority. Whether you like it or not, or you believe it or not, you actually are pursuing and want long-term health. That's what's going to pay the most dividends. What do you think?
No, I agree. And I think that that's why it's beneficial. And that's another thing you're going to talk about a little bit, having a coach, because then you can talk to somebody about what are your goals? What do you want? Why are you pursuing this? And then we can have training that complements that, so we're not making you try to fit into a certain training program. We're giving you a training program that fits into your life and your goals.
Yeah. And listen, like these guys that I'm talking about, I'm not going to name names, but these influencers, these bodybuilding influencers, they'll exercises that are really cool that blow their arms up or your back up. You can take that. You can borrow from these people. I'm not saying don't listen to anything they say. I'm just saying you trying to adopt the whole methodology and the whole principle of the thing and be like, I just want to look a certain way. I don't care what my blood work looks like, what my hormones look like. I don't care if it hurts me to train this way. I just want to look a certain way. Long term, you're going to regret that decision.
Yeah.
That also plays into, women tend to have this thing too with big influencers on Instagram as well. But namely, the example that came to my mind was men, because they're like, I just want to be jacked.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
Well, I think for women, they want to be like, we've been told so long that we need to be skinny, right? And then it's like, well, just do cardio. When really, no, you need to lift weights to achieve a lean body. But we've been told, well, weights make you bulky. I don't want to get bulky, so I shouldn't lift weights. So I'm only going to do cardio. And it's so just chasing a way to look instead of really working with somebody to say, I want to have a lean body, but but what else do you want? Do you just want to have a lean body? That's it? Or do you want to be able to, sit up, get up off the toilet when you're 80 years old?
Exactly.
Do you want to be able to have more independence as a woman and not have to rely on other people to put your luggage above on an airplane, to carry out your groceries? I was getting our dog Rolo's dog food, like a big dog bag. And the person was like, do you need help? And I was like, no, I got it. And then she was like, are you sure? And I was like, I needed to go do bicep curls apparently.
Well,
but because she asked me twice. But anyway, back to what you were saying.
No. Well, there's a funny thing here, because now that you say that, I was buying our weekly allotment of meat at Wild Fork. Shout out Wild Fork. And this always happens. The lady that she's like, "Is this too heavy for you?" I'm like, "Just put it in the one bag so I don't have 25 bags that I got to carry out, and one weighs 2 pounds, the other one weighs." It's a substantial amount of meat, but she puts it in there, and then I just grab it and she's like, "Ugh," puts it on there, and then he's like, I just grab it with one hand, and she's like shocked that I can do that. It's like, this is what you want.
Yeah.
You know, you want life to be easier for you. So that focus on capability will help you achieve that, and quality of life just goes up. Another downside to focusing on aesthetics, and I'm thinking now, when you're picking modalities or picking what you want to do in the gym, if you're solely focused on aesthetics, the chances of you landing on a training system that is not right for you and where you're at in life are higher. Meaning, I like the way this certain person looks on Instagram. They do CrossFit, so that means that I must do CrossFit to get to look like that.
Right.
And you're a mother of 5, and you have a full-time job, and you sleep 3 hours a night, and here we go. You're going to add high-intensity modality training.
5 to 6 times a week.
5 to 6 times a week, because that's what this person that looks the way you want to look does.
Yeah.
And that happens more than not when your sole focus is on aesthetics, which that'll bring me to another point that I have here, but I'll leave it there and I'll pass it on to you, Janie.
Yeah. And so I see related to that, a common hangup is basing one's worth or health off of the number on the scale. Like, if I don't reach this weight, it is a moral failure. Or if I don't reach this weight, I'm unhealthy. When that's not always true. Okay? It's more about, like I spoke in the previous episode, how do you feel? Okay? At this weight, do you feel great? Your blood markers look good, you're mobile, you're moving around, you're pooping regularly, you're eating well, your mental health is in a great spot. That's a great weight. Okay? Now, could you maybe want to adjust it from there? Okay, but then we do little things. We don't need to make any drastic changes to try to force yourself to this body weight that you created in your head as a marker of either worth or health. A lot of times, and I would say it's more women, just because more women tend to come to a provider's office, but men do this as well. They think they need to look like they did when they were 18. And you're just a different person now. If you're in your 30s or 40s or 50s, you've had life happen, okay? You're in a much different spot with your lifestyle, with your hormones, with your time situation, like how much time you have to be able to do things, with your sleep. There's so much has changed now. You're not going to look exactly like you did when you were 18 or at a different point in your life that was, your setup was different. And also, and you can speak to this because this goes with training as well, what worked in the past isn't working now.
Oof, that's a big one.
And it's because maybe at one point you did do, as Dan mentioned earlier, 5 to 6 days of CrossFit, and that worked well for you. But that was before your job became more stressful. Now you're married and have kids, or maybe one of your parents is sick and you have to go to help take care of them. And so working out, unless you are an athlete who's being paid, working out and exercising should complement your life. It shouldn't be in place of it shouldn't be done in a way where it's equally as important as other things in your life. And so it takes away.
It should add to your quality of life.
Yeah, I said that really badly.
Take away from your quality of life, not detract from it, because if it takes away from your quality of life, you're less likely to stick with it. And remember that we want to stick with it till the day that we get called on home. Okay, so I want you to be 92, getting under that bench press, doing your bicep curls and whatnot. Okay, now something there that, old man coming in. I lost my train of thought.
Was it more about I said that worked for you in the past doesn't work for you now?
Okay,
yeah.
So because it worked for you in the past doesn't mean that you did it right. You might have just gotten lucky there, okay? Or here's the thing. If it worked in the past so well, why'd you stop doing it? Maybe it wasn't sustainable. Makes sense? So now we want to focus on more sustainable stuff. And here's what happens. It doesn't, if you're in your 40s and, oh, I was in such good shape at 25, it doesn't mean that you can't be in good shape again. First of all, the context of what's in good shape is going to change. And we're going to adjust it to what good shape is for a 40-year-old or a 45 or a 50 or a 60 or a 70-year-old. But the thing is that the margin for error has decreased, okay? When you're 25, the margin of error is obviously wider. You're younger, nothing hurts. You could fall off a 3-story building and just dust off and walk away. Now in your 40s, there's more stress, there's children, whatever, what have you, bigger jobs. So your margin for error has decreased. So if you could be 80% dialed in at 25, maybe even less, because I'm thinking about what I used to eat and drink at 25 and what I looked like back then and what I could do under the circumstances that I was in my body in at 25 versus now at 42, where I'd argue that this is objectifiably true. I'm stronger than 25-year-old me, but I need my recovery and I need to measure my volume and this sort of thing. And half of the stuff that I did at 25, I wouldn't want to do even if I got paid to do now, but I'm still in really good shape. So the thing is the margin for error has decreased. So if I was locked in, let's say a number 70% of the time at 25, it was probably less than that actually, with my diet and my recovery and alcohol and all this other stuff. Now I need to be more like 95% locked in. That's just the reality of the matter, okay? Yeah. It's gonna take more effort and more discipline and more consistency with better habits than you had back then, when the last time that you got in shape.
Yeah. That's why more people who just have stayed with it over the long term and stayed consistent, this is easier for them. Those who have gone all in and then gone all out, it's harder to get back in. And so that's why we really try to really preach being sustainable, doing something that's sustainable so that you don't have to restart from zero all over again, because that's tough, no matter where you are. So, okay. What's the next one you got for us?
I got here, let's go to coaching.
Okay.
So thinking you don't need a coach. Listen, you might not need a coach, and you definitely, hopefully you don't need a coach for forever. But if you are an accountant and you expend the majority of your mental energy every day goes to handling spreadsheets and making sure, expenditures and all this stuff are balanced for some big business and whatever. That's what you do. When you leave work, are you going to become a strength and conditioning specialist and then figure out a training plan for yourself? Some people want to do that. Yeah. Some people have that kind of bandwidth. So you're either going to pay with time or you're going to pay with coaching. Now, what does that look like? If you want to ensure success in your health and fitness pursuit, you're probably going to have to do a good amount of research to put something together for yourself that actually makes sense. And then you're going to be constantly refining it and that sort of thing. So you're going to put a lot of time and energy into putting a workout program for yourself together and how you're going to structure it and all this stuff. Some people want to do that. They're that curious. Good on you. I would still consult with a coach to make sure that you're not, violating any strength and conditioning principles that might end up biting you in the ass later down the road. But thinking that you could just do it all by yourself when you have a completely different knowledge base is probably not the best idea, and it's not going to yield the best results long term. I own a business. Guess what I did? I hired an accountant, because I'm not going to sit there and figure out how to run all these books and balance all and do all this stuff and the taxes and the whatnot. I could, but I know I'm not going to do it better than an accountant. You know what I mean?
You should also say, you're a coach, but what do you have?
That's another one. I'm a coach. I write workout programs for a plethora of people from all different walks of life, and I coach them through it. And some are remote, some are in person, and I'm over here. My creative muscle for writing workouts is like, boom, boom, boom. This person needs this, boom, boom, boom. This person needs that. When I walk in the gym for my workout, guess what I don't feel like doing?
Coaching yourself.
Coaching myself. So I use somebody else's program.
Yeah.
And it takes all the thought out of it. Now, there's some management that I'll do it like, nah, I'm feeling like this, so I'm going to do this instead of that. You know, the coach in me is always active. And it also helps me grow as a coach because I'm seeing how other people are doing the stuff. And I can borrow and grow my tool belt, my toolkit in coaching because I'm experiencing other people's style of coaching and being exposed to other methodologies. Yeah. Now, things that you see when people are not really using a coach, there's a lack of effort and focus. Okay, you're just going to the gym to do random exercises, and then you're wondering why you're not getting results. There's no structure there. You're not putting in the effort required for the exercise to do what it's meant to do, because there's a certain level of intensity that you should train with when we're trying to get stronger and become more capable. You know, like, oh, this sucks a little bit, so I'm just going to stop right there, when really you should challenge yourself a little bit more. It should suck more, you know? But then there's other people that make it suck too much, so they need to get checked too. But there's some there, you know, you need a little push to push past certain blocks, you know, and get to that point of highly effective training, or keep yourself out of detrimental training where you're doing too much, you're just burning yourself down every day. Lack of structure. It's harder to stick with something that is not structured out properly. You know, if you're just like, I'm going to go to the gym and do legs today, and then you just start jumping on random machines and all this other stuff, and I'm going to do whatever here, eventually you're going to lose interest because it's not structured. It's not doing what it's meant to do. Now, all that to say, if you're new to working out, there's a phase here where initially I just really want you to just get to the gym.
Right.
And I don't care what you do in the gym. I just want you to build the habit of going to the gym.
Yeah, and getting acquainted with the gym, working your way around it.
And making the habit of like, oh, boom, it's, 5 p.m. or it's 6 a.m., I'm going to the gym. You know what I mean? And ingraining that into your life, that becomes, so I just want you to get there and do whatever. Even if you just get there and walk on the treadmill for 40 minutes, that's phase one of getting you to work out. Okay, so there is a caveat here to this. Now, ideally, I would send you off with a good program. This is where talking to a coach and doing a consultation helps. Be like, hey, this is what I want to accomplish. This is the time that I have. What should I be doing? So even if you're not going to get a personal trainer, because that's expensive, I get it. That's not an expenditure that everybody can make. You know, there are options out there. Mm-hmm. You can get on a program for $30 a month on Train Heroic. Shout out Train Heroic. Things like that. You can hire somebody to do remote programming for you. These are less expensive options. You can join a group fitness place. Please, something that is more strength and conditioning based. You know, any movement is good, but I would caution you, we're going to talk about this later, you know, the higher intensity modalities where it's all go all the time might not be what benefits you long term, but at least you'd get some coaching on movement there. Yeah. There are options here. Take one, okay? And go to the gym with some intent and a plan laid out for you. Yeah. That takes the thought away. You just literally have to drive there, show up, and it's right there. You just follow the thing and you go.
And I always tell people, having a coach in some capacity, as Dan mentioned, the options, is just going to make it more efficient for you time-wise. Because I understand when we ask people to start implementing exercise into their routine because of the huge health benefits of it, we're asking you to take time away, right? And for some people, that's a little uncomfortable because they're set in their routine and now we're adding something on. So if you have a coach or you're following a program, that makes it that much more efficient. It's like me trying to change my own tire versus a NASCAR pit crew, bing, bang, boom, done, right? Where I'm like, probably gonna lose a lug nut. I'm gonna throw the thing across the road because I'm frustrated, and it's gonna take me 2 hours instead of 2 minutes. It's such an exaggeration.
Yeah.
But
there are no such thing as shortcuts in the health and fitness journey and in life, really. But these are these things that enable you. It's basically like putting a little extra fuel in your car or getting in a faster car, if you will, to go to where you want to go. When you have a coach, when you have a structure, when you have programming, and you have people pointing you in a better direction. Yeah. there are less mistakes to be made. With that in mind,
this one's my favorite one.
lack of monitoring progress, okay? You should be getting stronger. You should be getting more capable. You should be thinking about this. Your progression is never going to be a straight line like this where every day I just lift heavier weights, because if not, I'd be squatting 1,000 pounds by now. But your progression should trend upwards, okay? So there's micro dips and raises, and you're kind of undulating like this, but you should be trending upwards, okay? That's what you want. And you want to be aware of your progress. Man, I did this squat last week with 100 pounds, or 2 weeks ago. Today, I did it with 105. Boom, you're doing good. Checking your on an in-body, checking body composition. I put on 2 pounds of muscle. Yes, that keeps you going when you're monitoring progress. I didn't say obsess about it. I just said monitor it and be aware.
Right.
Okay, so.
Yeah, and I think it's great to what I just said, like people focus on weight and they don't focus on how they feel, especially when you're in either a weight loss journey or trying to improve your health. For women, men can experience this too, but more for women, sometimes it's daunting to see that the scale's not moving, or maybe it goes up. But then if we do a body composition assessment and we see, well, the scale went up because I put on more muscle and I lost fat, and also I'm squatting more, I'm lifting more, or I'm able to do this weight with more reps or easier. These are all things showing us that we're moving in the right direction and allow us more opportunity to see progress, not just like, oh no, the weight's not moving, therefore I'm going to stop and not do it anymore.
Yeah, this is something that's funny. You're always going to be the last person to notice, honestly. People are going to start telling you like, bro, what you been doing? Like you're looking a little, you're like, me, really? Oh my God, no, I don't believe you. You're always going to be the last person to notice. So having somebody tracking for you and like looking into this stuff, be like, hey, let's get on an in-body. It's been 90 days. Don't get on an in-body every week. Don't do that to yourself. If it's been 90 days, let's get on and be like, look at this. You put on 2 pounds of muscle. That helps a lot to keep you going. Look at this. You're squatting more than you did last month. Oh, crap. You walked your cardio, you're in zone 2 for a little bit longer than you were. All this stuff matters. But I had a client, she's just going through the motions and she didn't think anything was happening. And I wasn't going to put her on the in-body because she would have been the type to obsess over it. And then she went to some gala and wore a dress and whatever. And then she's like, I saw a picture of myself and my legs look insane. Like I saw all the muscle.
I love it.
And she's like, oh my God. I'm like, oh,
let's go.
There you go. You know what I mean? You see it. Then she's all fired up about it. And then I'm like, okay, let's throw you on the in-body now. And then it's like, boom, look at you dropped 4% body fat. You put on this muscle. You see what I'm saying? That fires you up.
Yeah.
See what I'm saying? So that's something to consider there. You want to track your progress. You want to be aware of what you're doing. Yeah. What about you? What you got?
You want me to move on to another hang up?
Sure.
Because I said, what did I say? I didn't know you were going to go to me. So one thing that I see commonly with people is that they lack basic nutrition knowledge. Okay. And that's not anybody's fault. Most medical providers lack basic nutrition knowledge. Okay. And they're the ones you're going to like, hey, how do I eat better? What do I do to lose weight? What do I do to improve my health? Okay. So I do think it is worth whether educating yourself or finding somebody to go through the basic nutritional knowledge for you, because time after time, I start to educate somebody on we need to prioritize protein, like I spoke in the last episode. Getting up to 100 grams a day kind of as a foundation. I eat high protein is what I'm commonly told. I eat with every meal. And this is where conventional medicine fails. Most medical providers would be like, okay, patient reports eats the sufficient amount of protein, done. But I say, like what? Give me an example. What's your breakfast? Oatmeal. Toast with peanut butter. Those are not high protein. Does peanut butter have protein in it? It sure does. But you know what it has a lot more of and is the main source of? Fat. Okay? So it's learning what are proteins, what are fats, what are carbs, how to structure a meal that has some of each. Okay? And this is where a lot of people, they just, think that they're eating a certain way aren't open to really learning, am I though? Am I eating healthy? Am I eating enough protein? Could I be doing better? And so I see that as like a big hang up, is just lack of like nutrition 101.
Yeah, 1995 called and they want their nutrition advice back. If you think that starting your day with just oatmeal is actually going to
Don't get me wrong.
right.
There's something like comforting about oatmeal.
Oh, no doubt.
Yeah.
But put some eggs next to that.
Yeah.
Jeez, a
And notice how we aren't saying eat less. We're saying, no, have your oatmeal.
Yeah, and put
But
some
then-
eggs.
yeah.
Next to, like, geez, Louise, get a little scramby going with some eggs and some beef or something. Get some bacon in there if you have to. Add something to that. Like, let's just oatmeal, fam? Really? That's what we're doing?
Yeah. Or a common thing I people is like, I eat soup for lunch. Now, you show me just a soup, like you can get from a can, because that's what most people are getting, that has a large amount of protein in it.
Hello to you wondering why you're bloated a couple hours later. But maybe a can of soup will have a grand total of 1 ounce of protein in the whole thing.
Now, it's different if we're talking about chili or some hearty stews.
1,000
But-
grams of sodium.
Yes. But most people are,
That you're not going to sweat out.
you're
'cause
doing the
not-
chicken noodle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Or tomato.
well, yeah, and it's something. Oh, this is so common. Like, people think they eat healthy, and yeah, at some point in their lives, in our lives, what you're eating now was thought to be healthy, but things have changed. There's more information out there, and it turns out that it's not that healthy, or that we could do better.
Yeah.
Is it better than eating drive-through in the morning? Maybe. But we could do better, you know?
Yeah, and I think that there's a ton of information out there on just nutrition. The problem is that there's a lot of information out there, and
Yeah.
some of it is bad. So I can understand people's confusion. I really can. So it's finding optimal sources of that information, which guess who can help you with that? We can.
A coach. A coach.
A coach, or even just, we're happy to share people who we look to for basic nutrition knowledge when we were starting out this journey, or who we work alongside with who has great resources. So I can think of some I'll list off right now. Laura Lagos is a dietitian at the Sassy Dietitian, or the Sassy Dietitian on Instagram. Intentful Nutrition is another dietitian. Embodied Nourishment. So these things have really great resources on how to appropriately nourish your body. But if you want more details about it, shoot us a DM, shoot us an email. We're happy to point you in the right direction.
There's also a parenthesis here. When you look at food, you know, with the lack of basic nutrition knowledge, because peanut butter comes up a lot as a source of protein. Hummus comes up a lot as a source of protein. What else? Beans come up a lot as a source of protein, and it's not necessarily from people that are vegetarian or vegan. But here's the general recommendation that I tend to make. If you are looking at something as a source of protein and it has more fat than it does protein, or it has way more carbs than it does protein, it's probably not going to be an ideal source of protein. It's going to be something else. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
If I'm 60% carbs or 70% carbs and 40% protein, what would you be better off classifying me as? Probably a carbohydrate or a fat. Meaning you look at the caloric payload on peanut butter, for example, the payload of fat delivered is going to be way higher. And for you to get a significant amount of protein from that, you're going to have to consume an exorbitant amount of it and a fat to get the protein that you're looking for. Then we can talk about bioavailability, which is a different topic, but that's where I suggest, hey, is this protein? Does it have more fat than protein? Does it have more carbs than protein? It's probably not going to be the best source to classify as protein.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That applies to meat too, because certain cuts of meat are going to be way fattier than they give you protein.
Yeah. So what's your next hang up?
My next one is being stressed to the max and then adding HIIT, high intensity interval training type modalities, AKA overflowing stress cup is what we're going for here. So this goes back to the aesthetics over capability, where people start looking at other people and they be like, I want to look like her, or I want to look like him. They do this type of training So I'm just going to do this type of training so that I can get that result. Whereas there may be a different way of you achieving an aesthetic goal that doesn't look like what this person's doing. I'll use certain examples right now that are really popular. High rocks is becoming really popular right now, which high rocks, to me as a veteran CrossFitter, former CrossFitter or retired CrossFitter or ex-CrossFitter, however you want to classify that.
So dramatic.
Yeah, because listen, guys, we might beat up CrossFit a little bit here, but Janie and I were involved with CrossFit for a long time. We're talking a decade plus, okay? I was a level 2 CrossFit coach. So when I talk about CrossFit, I was snorting it, I was bathing in it, I was living in it. Both of us were. And then, we learned like, hey, long term, there might be better options. That's not to say don't do CrossFit if you want to do CrossFit. It's just to say be measured about it. But anyway, if you live a very stressful life, you're not managing stress properly, you're not sleeping well, you're running around chasing kids, you have a high stress job, you have a combination of these factors, you're not eating appropriately, your caloric intake is not appropriate. You think that adding a high stress modality to your situation is going to make you fitter? Not happening. You're actually going to end up gaining weight in the long run. You ever seen these people that work really hard, but they never seem to look different? They're not getting any stronger, and they train their faces off, meaning they put in a lot of time, but they're not getting any stronger. They're not moving any better. And obviously their physical results are not showing. And you're like, man, you're working out this much, but you're not, I don't see the changes. This is usually a byproduct of somebody who's too stressed, then it's not managing all their lifestyle factors, and then they're putting in these training modalities that, quite frankly, their body can't handle at the time. I see this a lot with women where they want to get into these higher intensity modalities thinking that that's going to help them lose weight and look a certain way, but they're not eating enough. And they're pretty stressed. They have kids, whatever, and they're running around. Their sleep is compromised because they're not eating enough. They also have jobs and careers that require a lot out of them. And then they're like, oh, but I have to do this HIIT workout. I have to 6 days a week. That is usually a recipe for disaster.
Yes.
What do you think?
Oh, 100%. I lived that. So the thing is that high intensity interval training does have some benefits done like once a week.
Once a week. That is correct. That is
right?
That is, if you're going to get into that modality, you're looking at once a week.
But
yes.
You let me know what CrossFit or the like type gym that has that type of training that the price per month makes sense to go once a week. Usually doesn't.
Yeah.
Because I remember when I was in CrossFit, I was going as many times a week as I could because I was paying X amount of money a month. I'm like, I'm going to get my money's worth, And so this is where having a coach would be grateful because then you can sprinkle in a high intensity day or a high intensity interval training day, and which a good program usually does incorporate a high intensity training day. It's not necessarily interval training, but it's a high intensity day, right?
Well, and going off in strength and conditioning, when we talk about intensity, we're usually talking about weight, meaning it's heavier weights. Then there's the volume consideration, which means how much work are you doing? But in this case, we're talking about intensity in the sense of like getting into that type of zone where you're breathing really hard.
And I think because we did not make this differentiation, but typically CrossFit in upstate New York, there's Metabolic Meltdown, Orange Theory, what else? F45,
Barry's
Hugh,
Boot Camp, all this stuff.
All these things, they're not truly high intensity training. You're more moderate intensity.
Yeah.
And living in that moderate intensity for all of your workouts is where the problem that Dan was talking about, where you're too stressed from it. It's not great.
Stalls you quicker.
True high intensity, and I'm going to try to say this, but Dan's probably going to correct me, is more like some sort of a sprint where it's on an assault bike or you're actually sprinting or something you're doing very quickly for 10, 20 seconds, and then 1-2 minutes rest.
Yeah,
right?
it may be even less than that, like a big high intensity, something that most coaches would agree is HIIT, if you are following appropriate strength and conditioning principles, would be more like 10-second intervals on a bike, for example, and then you're gonna rest 50 seconds before you go again. Those 10-second intervals that you're doing on a bike, people are like, just 10 seconds?
Maxed out.
Maxed out. And then you're gonna rest the remainder of that minute. Okay, that is true HIIT.
Yeah,
and if you hit that right, my guy, you will not want to do that tomorrow. Okay, so that what you'll know when you hit the HIIT.
Ooh. Yeah, so I've done that before, and at first you're like 50 seconds rest. That's so much time, right? And you're like, oh, I'm bored. Like you're waiting around. But second, third round in, that 50 seconds is not a lot of time.
Yeah, I was working with two girls. One's a UFC fighter, the other one's a PFL fighter. And I had them do 5 rounds, 15 seconds of going hard on the bike, 45 seconds of rest. By round 3, and these are professional athletes, they fight for a living. They did not want any more of that smoke. Hence, I went with 5 rounds.
Yeah.
That was enough. That was 5 minutes of cardio. That's it. That's all we're doing.
Yeah.
You know, and with one of them, I turned her off before then because it just got into that zone where it was too grindy and I was just wearing her ass out versus building her up. I was like, yeah, you're done.
Yeah.
Because you can't keep up anymore. So we're done.
Yeah.
But it is, I want you to think of that. Do you need to do HIIT type stuff for long-term health? My answer might seem controversial to some. It would make sense to a lot. My answer is no. You do not need to touch anything HIIT for long term. There is an argument there for the value of raising your heart rate, you know, and stressing it a little bit. Yes.
Once a week.
Once a week,
Or
if
twice
you
a week,
can. Now, do you jump into that type of training immediately? No. Some people really don't like that feeling, but I'm saying you can be healthier, stronger, more capable without doing HIIT. Ideally, we want to be optimal. Then yes, we want to hit some HIIT at some point.
Yeah, but you need to make sure you're able to recover from it. You're able to fuel yourself efficiently to handle it. And so everything else kind of has to be in line.
So that it actually builds you up and doesn't destroy you.
Yeah.
And what that looks like is if I'm bringing you from 0 to hero, we're going to go through a time where you're going to do a lot of zone 2 aerobic base building work. You're going to get stronger, because HIIT requires some strength to it so that you can actually put out at the level that is required for you to hit that zone where it sucks like that. And then you're going to get stronger. We're going to build an aerobic base. And then at some point be like, now we're ready. We can do once a week.
Yeah. And people who know what we're talking about, if you see a workout and it says work for 10 seconds, you're like, oh, shit.
Yeah.
Because you know that means it's going to hurt because you have to max out. And you tell me, okay, I want you to do something for 8 minutes. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. And some people, listen, there's prep work to be able to get you there so that you do that appropriately. Because some people, you drop them into this construct of doing real HIIT. They're not strong enough to express the level of output that it takes for it to do what it's meant to do. Makes sense? It's like, hey, work 10 seconds and they can only go right here because they don't have the required base to perform this type of training.
Yeah. No, I think that's well said.
There's that. Anyway, if you're living a stressful life, listen, this stuff is not for you yet. If you tell me, Dan, I really want to do HIIT, which I doubt you will.
So I just have to say a lot of people are addicted to that and I'm speaking from personal experience, and then other people have agreed with this, that you almost get addicted to that feeling of being destroyed because you're so stressed out everywhere else in your life. And then that adrenaline dump that comes, so you're almost addicted to that high that comes there, but you don't need that because then your body is just essentially vibrating because the adrenaline, the cortisol, everything's up and you're just on edge all the time and like cracked out, right? But we don't need to be like that. And you're just exhausting your system on so many different levels that your long-term result is going to be fatigue, stubborn weight gain, decreased libido. You get sick a lot, you know, all these things that show that you're not functioning optimally. So
that compromised immune function is a very important one. That's a very important sign of you're doing too much.
So all that to say, you probably could benefit from having a coach.
Yep. Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
So
What you got?
So what I have as a common hang up is, and this may be a little bit controversial for some people, but they really try to be good, air quotes, good during the day, and they end up restricting. And then when they get home and the distraction from work and life and everything's gone, they can't stop eating. Okay. And then a lot of times the label of food noise gets tagged onto this, or, well, I'm not hungry in the morning, so I don't eat. Okay. Here's the problem. If you're not hungry in the morning when you, about like an hour after waking up, maybe a little bit sooner, that tells me that your metabolism's not functioning optimally. Okay. Why aren't you hungry upon awakening? Okay. And if you say that I cannot stop thinking about food, now there is a real psychological issue with this in some people, but I would say that it is misdiagnosed or overdiagnosed in a lot of people because they're just not sufficiently nourishing themselves either with total calories or with micronutrients that your body it's not food noise, it's your body just saying, we need more because you're giving me crap and I actually want nutritious things. And so it's really looking at that. If you struggle with food intake later in the day, is it because you're not appropriately nourishing yourself earlier in the day? Or is it because you have some sort of emotional connection with food for comfort with that when the end of the day is done and you're overly stressed out, that's the only thing you go to make yourself feel better? And so those are things that I would want to look at before just saying, you have food noise, here's a medication for that.
Yeah, with that, there's a drop into that because somebody might tell you, well, I'm doing intermittent fasting. That's why I'm not eating in the morning.
Okay. And I would say if you do intermittent fasting within your eating window, you need to be getting as much nourishment as you would be eating throughout the day. And if you cannot do that, that's hard for you, then maybe intermittent fasting is really not benefiting you.
So I'm going to stomp this out real quick because I think intermittent fasting is a poor nutrition strategy for the majority of people. It's just a poor choice. One, if you're females, the majority of intermittent fasting research has been done on males. Your body's going to respond completely different to this intermittent style of eating than it will to a man. You know what I mean? Janie went over it. You know, you guys are meant to do different things than we are, so your hormones react different. There's a more delicate hormonal balance. Men, we're just kind of throwaway over here. We're like, I always say, we're a Honda Civic. You guys are more like a Formula One race car where there's a lot of considerations there. If your caloric intake is not adequate, and which happens more than none, more people, even though they need to lose weight, they're really not taking in the necessary calories and the necessary types of calories. Why am I going to then restrict the amount of your feeding window? Does that make sense? If you're low on protein, why are we going to restrict? You're not going to eat. If I give you the whole day, you're still not taking in the amount of protein that you need and the amount of nutrition that you need to get around and feel nourished and feel good and have a good amount of energy. Why are we then going to restrict the feeding window?
Right.
Makes no sense. Okay, so get the intermittent fasting as an eating strategy out of your head for the moment while you get to a point where you're more balanced, you're functioning a little bit more optimally. And then if it's something that you really want to do, then you can discuss it.
Yeah. So I think it shouldn't be a first step.
It should not be a first step. And honestly, it might never be a necessary step for 99% of people.
Right. And if you truly want to look into the benefits of fasting, because there are some benefits of fasting, we're not negating
benefits
that.
of fasting.
But that's like 24 hours, 72 hours,
and
should be done maybe quarterly.
Exactly.
Not every day.
We're looking at like a quarterly 24, 48 hour fast. There's a lot I'm very interested in that research and the benefits there. Dry fasting is another one that now we're up in the fringes, but there's a lot of research there that's coming out with benefits to cancer treatments and that sort of thing. Get that out of your mind because these are obviously extreme cases. This is fasting protocols as a medical tool, okay, for extreme cases. Same thing with eating ketogenic diets. That's a medical treatment for extreme cases like epilepsy and things like that, and certain types of cancers. So get that out of your head. We're talking here about, hey, I want to get to a functional, or I want to an optimal operating level for the long term, nourishing myself. Intermittent fasting, definitely not starting there. And it might, and quite frankly, it won't be necessary long term for a lot of people.
Yeah. And if you're not appropriately nourishing yourself at baseline, and then you go to intermittent fasting, and then you're just eating junk in that window
and making yourself way hungrier, and then your decision making is greatly affected when it's time to eat.
Some people, because there was a big rave about it, where like a newly diagnosed diabetes patient goes on intermittent fasting and they lose weight and improve their A1C, great. But let me know 5 years later if they're still able to maintain that.
Yeah.
Because if they're not able to maintain it, and they just do it for a little bit and then go back to what they were doing previously that got them to the diagnosis of diabetes, that's a problem.
Here's a consideration to another study that they showed that people that did a lot of intermittent fasting eventually ended up developing significant levels of insulin resistance.
Because I think it's a stress on the body.
It is a stress on the body, but here's the consideration here, because most people are not going to break the fast appropriately.
That's true too,
okay?
Yes.
So this is what I'm thinking. You intermittent fast for 16, 20 hours, whatever the hell. And then when you are going to break the fast, you're going to eat, you come out and have a regular meal, meaning you have sweet potatoes. Let's say it's clean. You have sweet potatoes, you have your rice, whatever. You have some fruit, and you have your protein, your fat, whatever. And then you were really low on your blood sugar levels. And what happened? Spikes. Now you spiked yourself up to the high heavens because you hadn't eaten in a long time. Body has to dump a lot of insulin to regulate that back down to a normal level. So people that are really good with the fasting protocols, when they come out of the fast, they only eat protein and fat, okay? So that your blood sugars don't shoot up super high. You don't want to do that. And that's something, that study, again, this is where you have to know a little bit to be able to extrapolate certain things. I think that's what happened. My theory is that that's what gave them that result, that people were breaking the fast with carbs versus no carbs.
Yeah.
But you see how complicated that is? Mm-hmm. Do you think we're going to, long term, you're ready for this when you're just starting out? No, we don't have to go there. You see what I'm saying?
So one thing that I've seen a game changer in a lot of patients when they're having issues eating more at night or later in the day, or they have food noise, is I have them insert a high protein breakfast. And it's usually a game changer for them. It sets the tone for satiety, sets the tone for blood sugar regulation, for energy throughout the day.
Making better choices in food throughout the day.
Yeah, so that's what I would recommend. If you're struggling with consuming more food at night, try upping your protein earlier in the day and see how that affects you.
There's an underlying message here, or an assumption that you have to make, that you're going to have to plan and you're going to have to prepare better so that you have choices available, so that you can get your meals ready. We'll talk about that on a later episode, because this is where grocery shopping habits come in. This is where cooking habits come in. This is where, if you have to eat out, where you're picking a place to eat out, all that stuff comes in. But for now, get your butt out of bed and make yourself a freaking breakfast. I don't know.
Yeah.
And not oatmeal, my God. Or have the oatmeal, put some eggs on that thing, man. I don't know how people go out into the world without breakfast. I've tried it, guys. Janie can attest to this. I got up on a Saturday morning. I got up too late. I had to go pick up our little farm fresh milk. So I went out into the world without my coffee and without my breakfast. And I came back. Beautiful day. We live in South Florida. It's awesome. Breeze is blowing. I'm like, oh, it's such a beautiful day. I came back ready to fight somebody. Why? Because I went out into the world without breakfast, guys. Get yourself right before you go out into the world, man.
If you're listening to this and you're like, wow, Dan seems like a diva if he can't handle one day without, you are correct. So just know that.
I don't even know what to do with that.
I love you.
Yeah. I don't even know what to do with that. It's not diva. Don't go. Listen, do yourself a favor. Things just look and feel better when you leave your house with breakfast in your tummy.
All right.
Do with that what you may.
What's your last hang up?
My last one is too much volume, which kind of plays with the previous one of being stressed to the max and then adding things like HIIT into your thing.
Let's start it with the example that I gave you with somebody who I saw a few weeks ago who is struggling with weight loss, putting on muscle, testosterone's a little low, and he's like, but I'm working with a coach and she has me do 3 sets of 20 of all movements.
Woo! That is a workout that I would just take like this. Oop, oop, take it.
You can rip it. Oh.
Throw it out the window. Okay? That is a terrible prescription for somebody. So you have two choices when modifying workouts. I mentioned it earlier. There's intensity, meaning weight. How heavy are you lifting? That's generally in strength and conditioning.
How quick or powerfully you're moving something. That can be
intensity.
intensity.
Or how quick or powerfully you're doing something. But generally, when people talk about intensity, we're talking about the weight. How heavy is it? How demanding it is. And then we talk about volume, meaning how much work are you doing in any given period of time. As you age, your tolerance for volume is going to decrease. This is something that we found. And especially if you've been training for a while, and then the more efficient you become, meaning the stronger you get, the better you can use your nervous system to recruit muscles, the less volume you're going to be able to handle. Why? Because every effort that you do is going to be a high output effort. Okay, you have an ability to access more. You're going to need more time to recover in between sets. So let's take two guys. One guy can dumbbell press 100 in each hand, 100 pounds in each hand. One guy can dumbbell press 35s. The guy that's pressing the 35s is going to be able to get into the next set quicker because he's not demanding as much from his nervous system. This is why beginners tend to be able to do sets consecutively. Mm-hmm. They still can't access that high output from their nervous system. So they're not digging that deep into the system to perform, even though it might feel like they're lifting a house to them. The guy that's doing the hundreds, he's really recruiting a lot, really digging deep into to put for that output. So he's going to need a little bit more time to recover. Granted, now if you're doing sets of 10, I don't want to get too technical here. Let me stop. But volume tends to be harder to recover from when you're doing big sets of 12, 15, 20, depending on the movement too. Like if you do a set of 15 squats, that's going to wreck you more than doing a set of challenging 6 squats, like a heavier set of 6, where you come out of the bar and be like, man, that felt like I was lifting a truck, versus the set of 20 that's like everything's burning, everything, like, oh my God, what did I just do? So as you age, as you get stronger, as you progress, volume becomes harder to recover from. So if you're in, that midlife point, or in this case, the example Janie's using, this person was 60?
North of 60, yeah.
Yeah, that's a terrible recipe right there, because you're just burning them out. Yeah. Not only that, volume tends to create a margin for error a bigger margin for error, meaning if you need to perform the reps a certain way to actually target the muscles that you want and to avoid injury, if I make you do 6 or 7 or 8, your concentration is going to last through that. But if I double that number, eventually your concentration is going to wane, and now you're just doing stuff. Especially with beginners. If you're not that versed in keeping that focus on your form, then I'm just creating a situation where I can, eventually your mind will fall off what you're doing and you can get hurt. Now, that's not to say that you'll never do a set of 12. When you're doing smaller movements, like a bicep curl, like a face pull, like something for the shoulders or something like that.
Accessory movements.
Yeah, like accessory single joint type of movements where, this is very simple. I can just sit there and I'm just working this one thing, or something for those muscles tend to require more volume anyway because of their nature. But it's very simple movement and you can keep your focus for longer versus a very complex movement like an RDL, like a squat or something like that. That is going to require way more focus that you'll only be able to sustain for a shorter period of time unless you're very experienced. But if you're very experienced, hitting that thing with a crazy amount of volume is going to wreck you. Okay? Now, the longer you spend in the gym and the more you're doing, the more stress you're accruing, and which is going to make it harder for you to recover. Now, obviously the changes that you want are going to happen when you recover. So if you're interfering with your ability to recover from a workout, then you're just spinning your wheels at that point.
Yeah.
Now, something that people that favor volume, because people think they need to be doing something every day to get in a significant amount of shape. Now, you might be misconstruing what doing something every day should look like long term. I lifted weights today really hard, trained really intensely, challenge myself. Tomorrow, I'm going to go on a more of a recovery day. That means I'm walking, I'm stretching, I'm doing my little mobility circuits. I'm doing something very light as far as requirement for my nervous system so that I can recover.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So peep what I did there. I'm active multiple days, but I'm not killing myself in the gym multiple days.
Yeah.
Makes sense? This goes back to the people that want to train 5 or 6 days a week or that sort of thing. And listen, some people can do it. Some people can do it. Long term, optimally, I'll use myself as an example. 20 some years of training nonstop, I have now landed in a position where I only lift weights 3 days a week. And I was having this conversation with somebody yesterday because we were discussing training programs. I'm like, listen, in my 40s, I'm PRing left and right. Like, I shouldn't be able to do what I'm doing now with the amount of training that I have under my belt. And this is not the first time that it's happened where I've dropped my volume with plenty of days in there to recover and I get better. Makes sense? Now, when I train, I'm training hard AF. And when I don't, I'm doing my little cardio, moving around, boom, boom, boom. And the results are better.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. What do you think?
No, I agree. I think that volume is not always superior. It's the intent that you have. Yep. Yeah. And especially, what are your goals? If you want to optimize your health, your muscle mass, your testosterone, burning yourself out with volume is not the way to do that.
Yeah. So. Yeah. And it's not necessarily going to improve your capability. And I know there's some people out there that they're thinking, I just got to do something for my peace of mind. Well, we might have to address some issues.
Which goes into my last one.
Yep.
A lot of times when I'm working with people in the medical office or outside, is they avoid addressing mental barriers. And so what do I mean by that? I can't do so much for you to improve your lifestyle if you aren't willing to confront some things that are holding yourself back. Now, that could look like a disordered relationship with eating, to where you have to be super regimented in everything you eat, or you have fear of food, fear of eating out. These things, we need to address that first, okay? Or if you have this transactional relationship with eating and exercising. I cannot eat this cookie unless I run 4 miles. If I go to the gym, that means that I can go out to eat tonight. And so if there's a transactional relationship that you have, that needs to be addressed, okay? If stress is your only outlet for stress, if exercise is your only outlet for stress, that needs to be addressed. Now, I'm not saying that exercise isn't a good outlet for stress. It is. It's the OG outlet for stress. But it cannot be your only. You need to have a mixture of other things in there to be well balanced, because what happens if exercise now becomes your stressor and we need to take time away? Or what happens if you get injured and you have to take time away? What happens if you're too busy to go to the gym? What are you going to do for a stress outlet? So we need to develop other ways. Food, you view it as comfort and the enemy. So again, going to disordered relationship with food. It's my comfort. It's my stress outlet. It makes me feel good. I ate this. I hate myself, right? So those types of relationships need to be addressed. If you're extremely attached to eating or not eating, and you will not change. So if I'm like, hey, let's have a high protein breakfast. I can't eat breakfast. I'm never going to eat breakfast. Well, why not? We need to dig into that why to figure out. And if you're, I love this. I'm Italian, so I have to eat pasta.
Don't get me.
Okay.
No, don't get me started.
Yeah. Or I'm
Puerto Rican, I have to eat a
Or I'm Irish, I have to drink beer, and it's like, it's a bunch of stuff like that where it's like, you don't have to do you like doing it? Do you want to incorporate it into your life and your routine? Great, let's do it. But why are you so tied to that and unwilling to budge? And then the last one that is a mental barrier that needs to be addressed before you can make any improvement is if I know what I need to do, but I'm just not doing it. Well, then I don't need to tell you what to do. I need to figure out why you cannot consistently do something. What's holding you back from that? Why do you think you're not worth making a consistent change to improve your health?
Yep. And I'm going to tack one on. Oh, it runs in my family. Oh, the genetics. Listen, don't listen to these freaking people. What's that? I wish I remembered her name. The Fatima, whatever, the dietary guideline
from
Harvard lady that's on 60 Minutes telling you that, no, it's all genetics. There's nothing you can do about it. I wish I could jump through the television and just flip the table over. Like, get out of here with that nonsense, woman. And it is, always remember, yes, there are some genetics predispositions, but your lifestyle is going to be the determining factor on how those genetics get expressed. You have a say, you have more control than you can think. They want you to think you don't have any control. But
which is why we really hit on modeling, using your behaviors of how you eat, how you move your body to model for your kids, right? Because I would say it runs in my family. Your lifestyle choices, how you view exercise, how you view food runs in your family, okay? If your parents never worked out and never got you into sports, what's the likelihood that you're going to be a really active person unless you chose that out yourself? And guess what? You've broken a cycle, okay? And so it's not just relying on, to me, that's a victim mentality. To me, that's, well, this is my setup. I can't do anything about it. False. You own your health. You own the choices you make. To what Dan said, are genetics going to make you a little bit predisposed to developing things? Sure. But your epigenetics, the things, your environment, the foods you eat, how you move, how you manage your stress, how you sleep, can also influence that to make it a less risk for you, or maybe it doesn't happen at all. And so,
that's a big one. I think that's a mental barrier for a lot of people, that they just think, well, everybody in my family, I had this conversation recently, everybody in my family has diabetes, type 2. Like, that's a problem. So what you were telling me you inherited is concerning eating habits, like same way, oh, it's a family recipe. Maybe that family recipe is not what you should be eating all the time, So something to consider there. Anything else that we want to add?
No, I mean, I hate to bring this up, but there is some emerging evidence saying, and I think that we're witnessing an evolutionary change real time in the fact that because obesity and diabetes is so prevalent now, people who are becoming pregnant in a insulin resistant state, they continue to make poor food choices, they are inactive, are the children that they bear more susceptible to developing insulin resistance, diabetes, obesity at younger ages? Yes. But that, to me, that's wild that we're witnessing it, but it's because of the environment of which you put your body in, which is the environment that your baby is developing in, has now created an internal environment for them that's kind of screwed.
We're gonna table that, because that's a good topic for a future episode, because then we can also talk about that study coming out about breastfeeding children when the mother's in a disease state, chronically ill state, what happens to the kid's development. So now we're at a stage, we've devolved to a position where obesity is being passed through biological processes. There's also prefrontal cortex development issues in the children of chronically ill mothers that breastfeed. This is a good deep dive. So
we can also talk about a presentation that I saw about this company that does gut microbiome testing and vaginal microbiome testing, because when a woman vaginally delivers a baby, her vaginal microbiome can influence that child's immunity and their gut health. And also the gut health of a breastfeeding mother influences the microbiomes that are passed through the breast milk, which can influence the baby's gut microbiome.
And then we would be talking about the amount of C-sections that occur this day and age, and how many children are coming up with autoimmune disorders because they weren't delivered vaginally. Theory there. Yes. Ooh, grab your hats. That's a future episode that you're going to have to tune in for because we're really, that's a big conversation right there. So you see like how we came up with future content right now? We're just bouncing that off each other.
And just a disclaimer, we are not demonizing C-sections or not breastfeeding your child. If there's an actual need to, we're talking about optimal choices if you had the luxury of making one choice versus the other. That's what we're speaking on.
Really, we're just talking about stuff that's coming up. Like we might have been doing something for a certain way for a while and then be like, ooh, turns out we're actually working against ourselves there. New knowledge. So something to discuss, it's worth discussing. When we're talking about long-term health, when we're talking about optimal health, when we're talking about improving the situation of the population, that's bars. When we're talking about improving the health situation in this country, which is abysmal, it's terrible, then we need to ask all the questions. And we are of the ilk that nothing is off the table. Everything should be under scrutiny. What's in the food? What medications are we putting in? What are we being exposed to environmentally? What's in our clothes? What is happening that we're getting so sick? I think everything is on the table. There's nothing that's too high and mighty to get questioned. And because we're looking for solutions. I don't want to manage problems. If you're looking to just, I just want to put a Band-Aid on it and forget about it, then this isn't the podcast for you. We're here to just discuss things and hopefully stimulate solutions to the issue of the poor state of health in this country. With that in mind, first of all, I want to say, look at my shirt, guys. You see that shirt? You too can make a statement. Okay, this is the rebellion. Okay, this is the rebellion right here. This is me saying I'm a part of the rebellion. I choose long-term health over the construct that we're currently living in, where I'm letting things influence how my health outcomes turn out. Okay, so where can you get this beautiful shirt that you and I are wearing, Janie?
At achievethelifestyle.com. We have the shirts. Our previous rendition of this shirt had the black lettering.
Because we weren't trying to be loud. We were trying to be subtle, but now we're loud.
Or dark gray, excuse me. I have not updated the white ones on there because me and technology aren't that great of friends, but I will get it up. But you can look at our website if you want to purchase the black lettering one. It is on there. If you want to purchase the white lettering ones and it's not on there yet because that's my fault, shoot us an email or shoot us a DM and we'll get it to you.
Yeah. So achievethelifestyle.com, guys. Check it out. Check out our affiliates out. If you want to work with us, that would be the place to contact us as well. Achieve the Lifestyle at Instagram and Achieve the Lifestyle on YouTube, guys.
And the TikTok.
And the Tiki-Talkie. We're actually the PharmaPhobic podcast on Tiki-Talkie, if you're into that sort of thing. But yeah, that is it, guys. Give us a follow, like, comment, subscribe. Send this to somebody that you know that needs some help with their lifestyle.
Yep.
And we'll catch you on the next one.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the PharmaPhobic podcast. If you found this conversation interesting, which I know you did, make sure to follow us on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And also make sure to check us out on Instagram at Achieve the Lifestyle. And if you're interested in pursuing a stronger, healthier, more capable version of yourself, check out our website at achievethelifestyle.com.
The PharmaPhobic podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. The views expressed are those of the hosts and guests and do not constitute medical, legal, or professional advice. Always consult a qualified healthcare provider before making any medical or wellness decisions. While we discuss pharmaceutical, holistic, and alternative health topics, our content is not a substitute for professional medical guidance.